So you got your Harry Styles shirt on.
My what?
Your
Harry Styles shirt.
Oh, yes, Harry Styles. Okay. I heard something about hair is styled, and I'm like, no, it's not, but okay. Thanks for the compliment.
Anyways, hello, boys, girls, friends, neighbors, babies, and babies.
You've been working on that, haven't you?
No, I came up with it while I was walking up
honestly,
the
it'd be
stairs
a
from the restroom.
Oh, okay. I see. So you've been working on it since 3 minutes ago. Got
2
it.
seconds ago, actually.
good.
I walked in the room and I went, oh, maybe I should say that. That'd be cute.
Oh, I like
But
it.
anyways, welcome to Semi-Bookish podcast, where we talk about things that are book and some things that are ish. Today is a book episode, I hope.
Largely, I would imagine.
You would think that, but
it's
you know we
huge.
go off the rails
Yeah,
sometimes.
it's a huge subject that is expanded beyond books.
So,
But anyway.
let's start off by asking the main question of life. Grant, what are you reading?
Oh, at the moment, I'm not reading anything. I'm taking a
I feel like that's like a whole entire theme.
Yes,
for the
every
past,
week
like,
there's
4
at least
episodes.
someone not reading something, which
Yeah.
is fine. It's look at the times we live in.
No, I'm still reading Art and Artist by Rank. I'm still
Yeah.
pleading the fifth until I finish it.
Sure, that's fair.
Um,
Is it pretty dense?
It is dense.
Oh.
I think
Is it like thick dense or is it like word dense?
both.
Oh well, no wonder.
I think
No wonder he was a
No, there's stuff both of you guys would find interesting. Like, I think you would like the cultural stuff. You would like the art history involved
Yeah,
in it.
I'm
Oh,
like
yeah.
obsessed.
I would probably love both actually. Art and Artist, you said?
Art and Artist, yeah.
By Otto Rank. Okay,
Yep,
I'm
it's a
gonna
lot
note
of
that.
Yeah. But yeah, so outside of books, I recently saw The Zone of Interest in theaters, which I have talked with Tony previously.
Yeah.
Which is a very, very good movie. It's definitely an audio-visual experience, so if you have an opportunity to see it in theaters, I would recommend it.
Okay.
It's rated PG-13, but it is very, very heavy thematically.
Sure.
So PG-13, but don't exactly bring your 13-year-old to it if you don't think they can handle it.
Yeah, if they can handle it, fine, take them, you know.
That's true.
'Cause,
And I feel like maybe your 13-year-old should see it because, you know, I'm sorry, 13 is too old to not understand the cost of things like Holocaust and
Oh, to be honest,
slavery
I had absolutely
and,
no
you know-
idea what this
no, I
movie
know,
was
no, I
about.
know. That's why I
I'm
brought
like, what?
that's why I brought it out. I want people to understand that your 13-year-old is not going to fall apart if they understand that, hey, war kills people. Lots of people.
Granted, when I was 13, my social studies teacher sprung the Boy in the Striped Pajamas movie on us without actually telling us what it was about. He just like sprung the movie.
I hate that movie.
Yeah.
I have been
I was a little bit
encouraged-
traumatized when I watched it.
I have been encouraged to read the book because the
book might be-
tactics that the book utilizes, which you would utilize in a book, are almost impossible. I shouldn't say that. Are difficult to translate to film. So what they decided to do in the movie, from what I can tell anyway, is take the cheap shot route and make all this imagery happen on 2 levels so that if you are somehow, I don't know how, but if you're somehow a 5-year-old like the protagonist of the book and watching this movie, you're going to see one thing, and everyone who's old enough to know what the word Holocaust means is going to look at that imagery and go, wait a minute, how come this kid doesn't know that his house is in front of a... Oh.
Here's the thing, I don't even remember in 8th grade. No, because 8th and 7th grade was U.S. history. We hadn't even gotten to that portion yet. He just showed us the movie as our introduction into that portion of life.
Seriously?
So you hadn't even gotten to World War II yet?
No.
Well, your
the-
teacher's awful.
Yeah, that's
And
kind
so
of
I mean, so as somebody who is, I see movies and sometimes I will reach the plot point, the main, like, plot and where it's going before, like, everyone else does,
Well,
or
yeah,
before
yeah.
the even movie gets there, but that's just because my brain operates weirdly sometimes.
It's an ADHD thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I reached the, oh, this kid's gonna, spoiler alert, but like, oh, this kid's gonna die, right?
Yeah.
And so I reached that point far in advance. Like, at, like, the first quarter of the movie, I just went, oh, this is not gonna end well.
This
is not
have
gonna end
arrived
well.
at that point far sooner than I did.
And I sat there and
Honestly.
I'm watching it in class and I'm just like, oh my god, So my brain is, like, I'm 13, but my brain is doing the why aren't the adults actually adulting thing.
But unfortunately, what you
That doesn't happen.
find out as you get older is the adults are adulting. They're just adulting for the wrong side of history. So there's that
And they're also
whole-
just, like, not adulting, like, parent-wise, because I'm like, how do you not know where your 5-year-old is?
I mean, if you're comfortable enough to either be the guy doing the Holocaust thing or
Right,
be married
just
to and have children with the guy doing the Holocaust thing, and then your house is literally
Like, just to have
in
to jump.
front of Auschwitz.
Right, right.
I'm
But,
pretty
like, my
sure
brain is just sitting there just
worrying
going-
about where your 5-year-old is may not be on your top of your-
But that was my main thing. Like, I'm sitting there just going, why is the adult not adulting?
But Zone of
And then I
Interest-
get to the end, and then I started crying.
So Zone of Interest is interesting not just because it's a Holocaust film, right? What is it like? Bring us into
Yes,
your
so-
without spoiling the effect. You know,
Yeah.
Enticed me into actually going to the theater and watching this movie.
honestly.
Okay,
what
so like I said before, it's definitely an audio-visual experience. I will say it's a capital A art film, so go in knowing that it's going to
Art
it's a challenging picture. So basically, you follow this family throughout their day-to-day lives, just their mundane activities and conversations and everything. They have a beautiful garden, yada yada yada. They just happen to live at Auschwitz, and the father is the commandant of
I'm
Auschwitz.
sorry.
It's literally the same plot.
It's just like, they just happen to live
But
in
it's
camp.
but it's handled differently.
It is.
right?
I would imagine.
Okay.
So
It's handled differently.
yeah,
From what you told me, it's handled.
yes.
Yeah.
So the horror and the beauty of the movie comes from the what you don't see, which I find very unique in this, because you never see any of the prisoners, you never see any of the atrocities. You constantly hear it in the background. So all of these banal conversations between a father and son or whatever.
And then you're hearing all that in the background,
Yeah, and you're
just
like, because you as an audience member know
what's happening?
what's
Yeah.
happening, and then occasionally,
That's fun.
you know what? I actually won't spoil it. There's a few.
But that
really cool
sounds
moments, but-
interesting on how they, like, portray that. Like,
Yeah.
It's different, right?
No, it's
Yeah.
It's a very bold movie to get a somewhat wide release. So
Yeah.
if you can find a place where it's showing, I'd say go see it. I had to go to Ypsilanti to see it, but
Ypsilanti. Ypsilanti, Tony.
Oh, what can I say?
Wait,
One more
yes.
thing. Not about that, but I want to congratulate the Lenawee District Library for joining the podcast game.
Yeah.
Oh yay! That is exciting. I didn't realize they had a podcast.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
starting a podcast now.
Oh,
Yep.
fun.
I'm not sure if the whole podcast is going to be about this, but the first episode is like the history of the Lenawee District Library.
Oh, that's kind of
It
cool.
seems very cool, so give them a listen as well.
Nice.
Cute.
Tony.
Awesome.
Tony.
Okay, so what am I reading? Funnily enough, yay! I'm actually reading something which I just started
Wow.
a couple
Zowie.
of days ago. I was listening to it over lunch. It's the audiobook for
Yeah, you were telling me about this.
yes, The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. Yes, world, I'm behind. I don't care. But this is what happens when you are behind, because you get to read it in isolation.
And you get to read it outside of the hype.
And exactly, which is what I prefer to do anyway. And I honestly just started it on a lark the other morning because I was awake and Joe was not awake and I needed to do something that wasn't noisy. So I was like, I'm a reader. Listen to an audiobook.
Headphones in. Here we go.
Exactly, because it's hard to keep your headphones quiet enough for someone who's sleeping next to you unless you're listening to an audiobook. Anyway, all that long rambling story was to say I started listening to it. I'm 5 chapters in. The thing that I love about this book so far, I love everything, but the thing that I love about this book the most is its humor. It has a really Pratchett sense of humor without skimping on quality, because in order to be comparable to Terry Pratchett, you have to be good. So he's very good. It reminds me very much of like a Diana Wynne Jones book as
Ooh.
told by Terry Pratchett.
Cute.
And unless you've read both of them, you don't really understand
Stand that
the fine
until you're
line.
there.
You know, like Pratchett has an enviable like ability to control exactly where the story is going to go, but make you feel like you don't know where it's going to go. Even though by the time you get through to it, you're like, oh yeah, of course it had to go that direction. But the way he's spinning it is more interesting than what he's telling you. Whereas Diana Wynne Jones has this incredible ability to just drop you into absolute hijinks, give you no explanation except, well, this person probably hated this person and that's why they cursed them. And you're like, but what? And then you just go off that for the rest of the book, because she's not going to give you any answers until the last third of the book, where she just throws stuff at you and you're like, I'm confused. And then you're not confused, and then you're delighted, and then, you know, all the things. But yeah, so it's the similar kind of thing where he's using the Pratchett sense of humor in The House in the Cerulean Sea to tell a story that's just very weird. The closest I can think of in terms of an example is if you felt like there should have been a therapist at Hogwarts and then they hire a muggle.
I think that'd be fun.
That's kind of what it feels like, except it's more of like, instead of it being a school, it's a it's an orphanage on this island where you're not really sure, like, how magical is the island, but the fact that the person that picks him up from the train station is an island sprite. And he only knows this because he's seen magical children in all these other orphanages. So, like, he's a regular, average social worker who's just really good at his job. And they finally are like, okay, cool, we're going to give you a promotion. But his promotion is to send him in the middle of nowhere to take care of to report on 6 children in an orphanage on an island he's never heard of before that has lots of magic stuff happening. Like, he just had an encounter with the garden gnome that makes me laugh. Also, the cat's name is Calliope. Yes, he has a cat whose name is Calliope, like the muse. Yes. And the cat is already my favorite. But I also love, the main character's name is Linus Baker. There is a Linus and Lucy joke already, and you're not ready for it. Like, I thought I was ready. I was like, oh, is that a Linus and Lucy? Oh my god.
Did the author find a clever way to...
Absolutely. Like, and not just a clever way of like, oh, this is clever. It's like clever for the world that you're in. Like, it's the kind of joke that only works
if you're reading it.
If you're reading it inside the context of that world, and it makes... Within 5 chapters, he's done that. Like, within 5 chapters, he's told a standard Linus and Lucy joke that is only funny if you actually know his world. And I'm like, that's good. Like, that's really, like, he's a really good writer. So, anyway, The House in the Cerulean Sea, if you're like me and haven't read it, you should. It's a scream. I'm living. Anyway, Erin, what are you reading?
First of all, I started reading our book club pick, which is Project Hail Mary, and I'm only 13% in. And I realized Alice has told me that this is on purpose because the main character doesn't know his name, but I don't like the fact so far that I had to read 36 pages without this character knowing their name and not knowing what I'm supposed to call this character, and all that I get for 36 pages is robot and man talking to each other, and the robot asking him questions and him not knowing the answers because he's been in a coma.
Sure.
Which is fine, but, like, I'd like to know my character's name, please.
Yeah.
So for a little bit of a palate cleanser indeed, because it was right next to it on my Kindle, I'm also reading God Killer by Hannah Kanner.
Oh, yeah.
And so here's the thing. I absolutely adore what they're doing right now.
Okay.
Which is weird because all of the books so far that I've read for other things, I've either been meh about or I've always had something where I'm like, I hate this right now.
Yeah.
So this is one so far where I honestly do not have any faults so far. I am only on, God, what is this? Chapter 4. But the premise of this book is the main character, Kissin.
Yeah.
So a long time ago in this, like, the land that they're called, it's a country, it's called Midrin.
Yeah.
And Midrin used to have, like, a whole bunch of gods. Like, gods were, like, a big thing. Like, you had people who worshipped, like, the water god, and then the fire god, and then, like, multiple other things. Kissin, whose family was, like, in, like, basically worshipping the water god because, like, they were living next to the water.
Yeah.
Their, house was burned down by a bunch of people who were worshiping the fire god, and her whole entire family burned in that house.
Oh.
She was also going to be burned in that house, except her father made a deal with the ocean god, who was not coming to their aid whatsoever, that he would give up his life to spare hers.
Mm-hmm.
And so now she has basically, like, this whole entire promise that, like, is written upon her from being saved by the god.
Yes.
However, after that incident and multiple other incidents around Midrin, the king outlaws gods.
Right.
In general.
Right.
In that if you are found worshiping one, you are to be imprisoned. Mm-hmm. And there are certain types of soldiers called Vega, and they go out and they go kill the gods. Hence the killer.
Killer, right.
Kissin is all gung-ho for this, especially after what happened to their family, and is one of the Vega.
Right.
Except, so it opens with that scene with the prologue of them all dying. Mm-hmm. Next chapter is, like, them actively being a Vega.
Yeah.
And without spoiling too much, there is a little girl, and she, for some weird reason, has this little tiny, like, mouse god, like, attached to her. Like, they are, like, mentally, like...
Linked. Yeah.
And it's weird, and she can't go tell, like, any other soldiers or report on it, because either she gets imprisoned, or the god gets killed, or mom gets imprisoned, and, you know...
Yeah, there's all kinds of consequences.
Hears that Kissin is in the tavern, and basically goes and, like, sits down and accosts Kissin, is like, I need your help. I need you to help me do this thing. To help her, like, fix this problem that she has, to sever the link, and then figure out why they're connected, because this hasn't been found before.
Right.
So this is something that's brand new.
Right.
And then the king... On the meanwhile, from this chapter, from what I can see, possibly has a thing with a fire god, and it's keeping him alive, but it's slowly dwindling.
Okay, yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of other things going on, and to be honest, I love the way that this is written so far.
Oh, that's cool.
It's all in third person.
Yeah.
Which is... Thank you. Oh my god. It's all in third person, and there's a good mix between, like... the opinion of the character that the chapter is following, and the description and action that is actively happening. Like, there is this is, like, towing the real fine line of, like, being too much and too little, and it is perfectly within that line.
Wow, that's hard to balance, actually.
This is, like, a really good balance so far.
Nice.
And then, meanwhile, I'm also reading a fanfiction called Manacled, and I'm reading it for a reason. And it is a Harry Potter fanfiction. It's Hermione fanfiction. There's a reason I'm actually reading it, even though I hate the ship in general. And it is a Handmaid's Tale-esque, like, think book 7 doesn't exactly happen the way you think it does. Harry ends up losing, and Hermione ends up being a surrogate a la Handmaid's Tale, and it's Draco. It has a happy ending, apparently. Do I know what it is? Absolutely not. However, remember how I talked about the books that were being bound and sold on Etsy and stuff the other week?
Yeah.
This is that book. I downloaded it off Mayo 3, because, you know, you can do that legally for free without having to bind and sell it. However, the author is taking it down in 2024, and it's gonna get reworked and is gonna be published as an actual book. So I'm reading the fan fiction now, so when the book gets published, I can read it and do a little, like, what are we doing?
You know what, I'm just gonna...
Speaking of terrible romance novels...
I mean, is it supposed to be romantic? It doesn't sound like it.
It's a shipped thing. I don't think it should be one, but I have so many people who have read it.
Tell me, once you've read it, how shippy it is, because it doesn't sound very shippy to me.
I read the tags, it's not. Yeah, it shouldn't be, but I know that people ship it anyways. But speaking of romances and ships and OTPs and things like that, we're talking about romance today.
Love is in the air.
Exactly.
It's February.
Exactly.
It's February.
Actually, that should be the title of the podcast. Love is on the Airwaves.
That's cute.
I think we just...
Isn't that cute? I think it's cute.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Love is on the Airwaves.
So are we talking a romance stories in general?
Yeah.
Okay.
Romance media, romance stories. What's
Sure.
your favorite type of romance? Because I know there's multiple different types that are underneath it.
Yes, that's true.
Now, listeners, we did have this episode like ages back, but like
Yeah.
we're reworking it because
Reworking
now
it,
there's
yeah.
only 3 of us, and we might have different opinions from last time.
Yeah, and also the recording quality of that one wasn't all that great. So this is your chance to get a, upgraded recorded quality. I don't know. Go back and listen to the
Why do I
last
not
one. Some
have a
stuff was
notepad?
said.
I do have it.
You don't have to listen to me yelling into my phone. For,
Were you yelling into your
I
phone
was
in
yelling.
episode?
I was also yelling into my. It's fine. I get it. I didn't have those lovely little earbuds yet. But anyway, all right. So favorite because the live action of Avatar: The Last Airbender dropped a trailer.
I thought it was canceled.
No. The original creators of the show, of the original series, walked out years ago, and Netflix was like, we still have the. So you're just leaving this here with us? Cool. We're gonna go ahead.
Yeah, I've been looking.
And I have been so irritated until that trailer because I'm like, y'all gonna mess it up.
No, because of what they were saying. Because they're like, we're not going to do this and this.
Yeah, and
was
then I
like,
watched the trailer, and
hello?
I saw the trailer, and I was like, Twitter can have several seats because Twitter's losing their minds. They're upset. They're like, but they said, and they said, and they said. I was like, I don't care what they said. The trailer says
TikTok also is losing.
I'm in love, and I just want, because what people want is they want a cartoon. And I'm like, if you want a cartoon,
Go watch
pull
the
out,
original.
Yeah, go
Isn't
to
it also
wherever.
on Netflix?
It's on Netflix.
Yeah, just go watch
I
it.
have the
It's
little
right there.
Blu-ray box set. Go watch the cartoon if you want it. This is live action, so no, there aren't going to be as many dumb jokes.
Maybe your local library has copies of the DVD.
Right, Aang is.
should do that.
Well, we did, and then they disappeared.
Oh,
but
well, that's
Aang,
good to know.
Aang is not going to be, an animated version of Aang. That's not how that works. He should be funny, and he should be creative. If I don't see 2 of those things, I'm going to be pretty upset. But I'm not upset at the trailer. Anyway, all of that was a long boiling up point to say that a common ship in that universe, from people who don't know anything.
Are you talking about
a common
Katara?
ship is Zuko and Katara, which I every time I hear it, I'm just like I can't.
To be honest, I can see it. But this is
I can see why it's a ship. One of my big issues with ships in general is that people don't understand that it ain't just cute because you put it together. That's not how romance in stories works.
No, that's how fan fiction works.
That's how in real life. It's a whole crap bag, right? It's whatever.
Right.
But in a romance story, the reason this character is with this character and we love it is because it was well thought out. It was planned. It was procedured. You were forced to feel that way. So if you feel other things about other characters, you're not wrong necessarily.
Right.
Even though if you think Zutara is a good idea, you're wrong.
I just like the fan fiction because sometimes they make really good things.
Yeah,
But that's different. Like, so.
I mean, if Zuko hadn't been responsible for the massacre of her race and then was like, also, I'm going to add to that by killing the Avatar, sure, I'd be fine with it. Except he was. And yes, redemption arc,
and I will say there were moments of vague closeness with them.
They had like 2 episodes.
I'm just saying,
I know. I get why people feel that way because you put them. Yeah.
They were a couple
No,
of-
but that's the point. The seeds were not there.
Right.
The seeds were not there. People want the seeds to be there based off of things that are happening in the story that have to happen in a certain way with certain characters that don't happen the same way if you're creating a romantic arc. The creation of a romantic arc within a story is much more difficult than if you're just going to create a romance, right?
Listen, if there were snippets there, I think they would have.
It's one of the reasons
That
we
would've
make
been, like-
fun of George Lucas for writing terrible romance, because he actually writes terrible romance. He has no idea how to create a build. Anakin and Padme only happened because we all knew that Darth Vader has to have kids, right? So
Because of the bomb drop that was given to us, like at the very
right. So
the
like,
first.
what's the easiest way to make that happen, right? Well, you make him fall in love, right? Okay, fine. So Anakin falls in love before he goes to the dark side. Great. Opportunity for a tragic love story that falls apart, and then she's pregnant. Oh, the whole thing, right? Could have worked the same way that it did. Here's the problem. He starts it off with him as a child.
Yeah.
And her as a child, but she's a child ruling a planet. So
She's like a teenager too.
yeah, she's
right?
14.
She's like 10. She's like 10 years
he's-
older.
No, he's 9 and she's 14. That's why when people are like, oh,
So it's fine.
why would she fall in love with a boy when Obi-Wan Kenobi's right there? And I'm like, because Obi-Wan Kenobi's 10 years older than her as a Padawan. He's not looking at her at all. But
Also,
because-
here's the word. If anybody was like Jedi to a T, it's Obi-Wan.
Yeah, right. So,
What are
definitely
you
barking
talking
up the
about?
wrong tree for many reasons. But here's the problem: is that you get into episode 2, and this man-child who is 18, 19, gets off the elevator and acts like a man-child in front of. Sure, she's 24, but she's also been a senator for 10 years after making sure her planet didn't die at 14. She's not exactly going to look at that guy and be like, oh, he'd be cute. Like, no, he's cute until he opens his mouth. And then it's like, oh. And then he does none of the work that you need to do. Because by the time you get to that first kiss, on like with the beautiful, on the villa, whatever. I have a friend who actually went to her friend's wedding at that villa last year. I know, I'm mad. Anyway, so like, the dress and the I don't like sand, whatever, right? I don't like sand is not a bad piece of dialogue from a kid who grew up on a sand planet and who was a mechanic. It is bad dialogue when he's trying to use that as a way to kiss
When
her,
he's
which
trying
he's going
to
to do
riz,
a second
it's like
later.
a horrible
It's
riz. Like, that was a
terrible.
failure.
It was so bad. And that's why we make fun of George Lucas, because he does the same thing in the original trilogy. I don't care how you slice it. The I love you, I know only works because they've been kissing the whole movie and backbiting each other the whole movie. Like, it's a moment that works, but if you string together the number of scenes that they have in that movie to create a romance arc, it's a crap romance arc. It's not even an arc. It's like,
And that line was improvised.
and it was
so
improvised.
it wasn't
Exactly.
even in the script.
Exactly. But I will give Irving Kershner credit. He knows how to shoot a film in a way that convinces you, so that when you get to that line, you are pretty convinced. But
No, he doesn't get nearly.
Okay, but Tony, do you actually? Because we went from Zutara not exactly being the ship because there's actually nothing canon in there, which reminds me Germani, because I was literally just saying like that. That's also it works in fan fiction, and this is also Dreary, which I understand. This Draco here.
I mean, I don't. I'm
so it works in fan fiction where because. Tony, fan fiction rules are you can slap anyone together. And
I know. I just feel like
matter.
I feel like
literally
if you're gonna Batman and Talia every couple that you come across in every universe that you love,
right?
why don't you just have Batman and Talia? I mean, that's
So but there's no and that's fan fiction rules. Is you can slap characters together and you can pair them together and it's great. But when you look at the canon, you have to be aware that, that's not exactly going to happen because of the fact that, there are certain things, Zuko basically murdering her whole entire tribe at one point.
I mean, that would be like Princess Leia shacking up with Grand Moff Tarkin. Why? Why? He just blew up Alderaan.
That's Draco's part of the evil Death
Draco's
Eaters.
Draco is a Death Eater at one point.
And then you have Hermione who's a Muggle-born. You really think that's actively going to work?
And I get it. Again, Batman and Talia, right? Batman and Okay, let's just not even Batman and Talia. Let's go with Batman and Catwoman, right? Because I have this argument with people all the time because people get really uppity and think that they know some stuff about Batman. And I'm like, hold up. So you're saying you didn't like Batman and Catwoman in name any example? Oh, they just don't work. Okay, I'm sorry.
Doesn't she literally just steal stuff to get his attention?
Batman and Catwoman have been doing this since the 30s, okay? Yeah. So you talk to American writers who have been doing this for 100 years. You mean to tell me you really think the Batman and Catwoman don't work together?
And doesn't she still...
That's the whole basis of their relationship.
And she steals stuff to get his attention sometimes.
And he goes
after every single time.
Now, there are more nuanced versions of that have come across, and then there are less nuanced versions.
Right.
We can talk about that. But Batman and Catwoman were designed to be a dysfunctional, almost relationship.
Yes.
He would totally be with her, except she's a thief. And he can't be
and
Batman.
That breaks his code of ethics.
It's completely. And then you upgrade it and you go to Talia. I mean, she's the daughter of the guy who lives the League of Shadows. And then she's in the League of Shadows, and she's like a super spy. And then he ends up having a kid with her. It's not supposed to be romantic. It's toxic. The same thing with Joker and
Harley.
Then
what do you think about Poison Ivy and Harley?
Is there a relationship that actually works out in the world of Batman?
No.
Yes, Dick and Barbara, all day long. If Dick Grayson ends up happily ever after with anyone else, the writer probably prefers him with Starfire. But everyone knows that he's only interested in Starfire because Starfire is hot. Starfire knows that he's interested in Starfire because Starfire is hot and she's from another planet. So she's like, sure, I'll be your hot alien princess. Until he's like, wait a minute, I'm in love with Barbara. Like, he's always in love with Barbara Gordon. That's
their whole entire shtick.
Yes.
Like, it's their whole thing.
So they work, I mean... Depending on how she becomes the Oracle. I mean, there's that whole thing. But, yeah, I mean, it's the two of them. But romance. We're talking about romance. Ships. I don't know. Who do you guys like? Who do you want to be together?
Yeah. You're asking me questions that I can't answer.
That was my rant about romantic ships. I don't know.
See,
that no one needed.
I come from the fan fiction world, so like basically anything could be a ship if you really wanted it to.
Which I get if you're changing the world to suit the ship.
So
that makes sense.
any time that like let's say it is a ship that's like against the canon. So when I was mentioning earlier like Jury, and you're like looking at me like, does it actually work? No, the ones that I read are ones that where the world has been bent in a way to make it work in some way, shape, or form.
Well, it has to allow for gay people who aren't Dumbledore. Oh, I'm sorry, did I say that? I did. Okay.
So, like, that could be anything other than adding in the idea that at a certain point in time, Harry being put in the Goblet of Fire emancipates him, and then he goes off and does whatever he wants.
That's interesting.
That is actually a trope.
Okay.
Or, like, you could rearrange like a lot of things, like Harry goes into Slytherin instead of Gryffindor, and that opens up an avenue for things to happen and occur.
They would know each other better.
Like you could do a lot of things like that, and that's something that I particularly like about fanfiction ships in general. Is the fact that like while I enjoy the canon, I like to look at like it's called crack ship, and it's shit characters, and this is like especially with like things such as like what is it called? Like crossovers. Like, so for example, like I was like, okay, so if you read a crossover ship where it's MCU and DC.
Sure.
You could cross that over and you could pair literally anyone together and make it work in some way, shape, or form. By bending it. Don't you like that? No.
Honestly, only...
But I've read it.
Only if I can get Peter Parker... with one of the Robins. I don't even care which one.
Actually, to be honest, that is one of the ships, and it's usually either Tim or Damien.
It would be Tim.
Or Damien, depending on...
Damien would kill Peter Parker on sight.
I know.
Because he just does. That's his response to anything he finds less intelligent.
I know most of the time it's usually Tim.
That makes sense. Tim's
and it just makes a lot of sense, and I think it works pretty well, depending on the version of the crossover.
And old enough... A Tobey Maguire Peter Parker with Jason Todd could be...
It could work.
Actually kind of savage and adorable at the same time. Like, it could be...
Team Red Peter Parker with Jason Todd. Team Red Peter Parker is when he teams up with Daredevil and DP.
Oh.
That Peter Parker with... Working with those two, and then, like... Who is it? Felicia? Hardy? She's one of his Peter Parker's canon ships at this point.
Okay, yeah.
She's in the game.
Oh.
She's in the game.
I haven't played it.
But I know she's also in the comics as well. Like, it's a whole
Probably, yeah.
I just don't remember exactly who she is. I think she's Black Cat.
Sure,
I don't remember. Not even gonna look it up at this point. But, like, fan fiction, I can ship whatever I want.
Which is the whole point. Yeah.
But, like, I can also bend the universe to do things such as your coffee shop AUs or...
Oh, yeah. No, see,
AUs.
that I think is... I love the idea of that.
Like, no, so that is what a lot of, like, the canon bending ships can do.
Yeah.
Is, like, they will put them in those, like, type of situations.
Yeah.
Or they will bend the canon to suit what is going on, like, in a way. But, like... the well-written ones are ones where they put it in a certain point in the story,
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
it seamlessly just flows in with the canon.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
with certain
So do you
areas-
have a favorite ship?
when I was a kid, my favorite ship was Bulma and Vegeta.
I wish I knew what that meant. That's Dragon Ball
I
Z.
know
isn't it?
Vegeta. Who's the other person?
Yeah, Bulma, his wife.
Oh.
He literally marries her at some point.
Oh, okay.
They have a character named Trunks together. Like, they have a child who ends up being, like, one of the main characters at some point.
So it's not so much a ship as in it just actually happened.
It actually happens. Like, but it was, like, it's a good ship.
I have a ship.
And then,
yeah.
when I
have
was a
ship that
kid, I
Greg will
really liked,
recognize.
I don't remember his name, but it's from Tokyo Mew Mew, and the main character's name is Ichigo, and then there's, like, this evil character, and he's not exactly that evil, he's just kind of anti-hero-esque, and they are really well shipped together, and it's really, really cute and adorable, and I like it, but, like, outside of that, I tend to ship sometimes the canon ship, like, I was Sasuke Sakura from, like, day one of Naruto, which
totally
everyone hated me for, but I was like, listen, it's a thing, and I can see it happening, and lo and behold, it happened.
I want all of the Sailor Scouts
Mm-hmm.
to be in a polycule.
Yes, please.
Because I feel like that's just... I mean, Sailor Moon is already crushing on half of the girls anyway.
Her and Sailor Uranus
And
are just like a whole entire
she's
thing
like,
at this point.
but like, she's like stupidly in love with what's his name, Tuxedo Mask / Prince of
Mamoru?
Demian, which I get it.
Mamoru?
Yeah, like she's in love with him, and I get it. That's a whole thing. It works. The writer makes it work. I think it's wonderful. But I'm like, but in an alternate universe,
Oh no, there's so many fan fictions that it's ridiculous.
I'm sure there are because the creator is bi and was always telling people that she's bi. And in the original manga and also in Sailor Moon
Haruka
Crystal,
and what's her
she's constantly making like bisexual references, and then a couple of the girls actually do.
No, so Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune.
Yeah, right.
Who I never remember the names. One is Haruka or something. And I don't remember her other name. I'm gonna look it up.
Don't they all live in a house together, anyways? Or
No.
I haven't seen it or read it, so I'm
Michiru.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no,
Haruka
they don't live in a
Michiru.
house. They could just go to school together.
So those two are actually in a relationship in the manga.
And it was some
And the
sort of
Japanese version of the anime. They are together. It is a whole entire thing. And
Yeah.
those two particularly, if I remember right, because like all the girls are like some form of high schooler. Those two are older than the rest of the girls in the idea.
so.
I think they're like third years going into college.
Yeah. I think
And
so.
then Pluto is like significantly older than them.
Which makes sense.
It's like she's like already like professional in whatever she's doing.
Yeah.
But Uranus and Neptune are together in that form.
Yeah.
However, in the Viz dub, not the current Sailor Moon Crystal, because I don't know if they've actually like reached that point yet. But in the Viz dub of Sailor Moon, which is the original one that was 90s, 2000s that you'd see after school on Cartoon Network, in that version they're actually cousins because America
It's
had...
Americanized.
It was Americanized, but they had some... It was a weird censorship thing at the time, and they did this a lot because in Cardcaptor Sakura, which is another, like, girly kind of manga, the main character, Sakura, in the Americanized dub version, they changed, like, a whole bunch of characters' names in the first place, which I absolutely hated.
Yeah.
But anyways, the main character, her mom was a student and her dad was like the professor or the teacher in high school. This was like a high school thing. She fell in love with the dad, like the teacher.
Yeah.
They got together. She dropped out of school. And then had, the kids.
Yeah.
And there's like a huge age difference between her and her brother, but that's like a different thing. But they say it's her cousin, like Tomoyo, who's like her best friend, is her cousin. But in actuality, like, I think they are cousins because it's Japan. You can do like cousin marriage and stuff.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She hates Tomoyo's mom hates the dad because she was in love with Sakura's mom.
Oh, jeez. Oh, okay.
Which is
got
the whole
it, got it,
entire
got
thing.
it. Okay, got it. I was like, wait, what?
And it gets even worse because, like, in the American dub version, one of the fourth graders, because they're like fifth grade, is actually in love with the teacher, and it's like a well-known plot point because there is quite literally an episode, because there's cards that Sakura has to go find and put back into her father's like little study in the book. One of the cards literally takes over the relationship between the teacher and the student. Not in a bad way. But, like, it's like a Valentine's Day episode, so she's giving him like gifts and all this stuff, and it's like horrible.
Oh my.
So like that's a thing that wasn't exactly put in the Americanized dub, and then also the fact that Tomoyo was also in love with Sakura at the point, and I'm like, they're 12. Why are we shipping this?
I mean, problematic stories is another podcast
the whole
episode.
entire show is problematic.
Yes,
but it's great.
That's another
at
show.
the same time. And I'm like, why was this put on Kids Show Network when I was a child?
I mean,
Grant, do you have any ships?
No.
No? Why not?
I have a ship that you will not be surprised to hear is a ship.
Okay.
And I'm not entirely sure it wasn't meant for us to think of this as a ship. But for me, it's all about Guts and Griffiths.
Okay, me too.
And if right, and I like the idea that Guts is bi. Actually, I like the idea that they're both bi, because that just makes sense.
I mean, we know for a fact that Griffith. Well, it was a situation. Read the thing. Watch the show.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, that was weird.
Where
I feel
are they
like
from?
Berserk.
Oh yeah, that's why I don't know anything. I'm gonna drink my drink now.
I feel like I like the idea of the story, or at least the Golden Age arc. To me, bears out the idea that Guts is most likely bi. We see him have, and I won't say who it is. We see him have relations with a woman. But the relationship between Guts and Griffiths, for people who don't actually know anything about what I'm about to tell you, there's a very, 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 very old, and when I say old, I mean like ancient, story motif that is called courtly love. And if you go back, if you go back and look at the Arthurian tales, like the early versions of Arthurian tales, they all have a bunch of courtly love aspects to them.
This is where a lot of the historical romance tropes come from.
That's where it all comes.
It's like all
and
just...
courtly love does not start out as gay. I think it took till about like the 17th century before suddenly people were querying it, and people now are going back going, oh, because it was there, but it was supposed to hide underneath, the main romance or whatever.
Well, that's kind of like where courtly love just like is, because it's just like...
Yes, the whole idea of courtly love is that you have the beautiful one, the gorgeous, and they don't do anything. Like, you never see them actually active. They're usually some kind of lady, right? It's some kind of, woman. And she usually has money and that kind of thing. And then you have the knight. Yes, there's a knight, usually most of the time, unless he's like a roustabout trying to be a knight. But knight... Roustabout
trying to be a knight, the other lord who's like
and he's
the overlord
trying to... And he's constantly giving her gifts and like basically
he's the one doing the wooing.
Wooing all day long. Frequently you'll see in old paintings of courtly love or depicting courtly love, you'll see a woman in fine dress seated looking away from him. Maybe her eyes kind of slantly like... looking in his direction, but she's like side-eyeing him, but she's definitely not looking at him, and he is on his knees in like a begging posture, like sometimes he's draped over her lap, sometimes he's like wants to be, but he isn't. We've all seen that image, right? If you've been to any museum, we've all seen that image. That's the basic gist of courtly love. And Berserk courtly love's all over the place in the Golden Age arc. Like,
my thing is, I can definitely see it. And I got those vibes too when I was watching it. I don't know how much Miura intended that reading. And it's hard, and we'll never know now that he's passed away. Same with a lot of, other authors and stuff.
Yeah.
But if you want to watch it for that, it definitely works that way. I'll say that.
It snuck up on me because I didn't expect it. Obviously I was just like, okay, whatever. I didn't know anything except it's probably going to be violent. Which it was. But, it was fine. The entire setup now you want to talk about a romance arc well done. That's a romance. Like I don't even have to ship them. That's how well the romance arc is done. I'm like, oh yeah, no, we all know, right? We know, yeah, they're together. Like, it's a thing and it even ties into the end of the Golden Age arc, which I will not spoil. But there's a moment where so much is happening all at once, and for the first time in the entire plot, Guts physically cannot do anything, and that's his entire character.
It's a very hard scene to watch for multiple reasons.
It cuts so many different ways, and part of the reason it does that is because the plot is pushing you by hook or by crook to believe in Guts and Griffith. I mean, everyone around them is even kind of just like it's a whole thing. Now, of course, Griffith can do things like play this weird courtly love relationship with the princess of the kingdom, but no one says like, oh, wouldn't they make a good couple? Even his like companions, no, all of his companions are going, that's how he's gonna become king. Yeah, like even that is something where they're not like going, oh yeah, we know he's straight. He's totally gonna get the hottest girl in town because he's Griffith, right? No, that's not how they frame it. So even then, it's like, yeah, what's going on here?
Yeah, and there's just a lot of stuff with Griffith's character where you wonder how much is a power play, how much is genuine.
Yes.
How much he cares about people.
Yeah.
Which,
yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's a very interesting dynamic.
It is. It's certainly not the kind of... And I think that's the other thing that, like, since we're talking about romance, that I would like to, like, sort of hit this nail right on the head for people. Mm-hmm. They're not supposed to inspire you. Romance novels are not supposed to inspire you. Romance movies, television shows. Every time I hear people say... A
certain previous cast member of this podcast might throw...
I agree with that.
So maybe I'm getting opinions mixed up, because were you the one that was big on a romance story has to end happily with them getting together?
Yes, it has to be, yes. In order for it to be considered a conventional romance story, it has to...
Conventional is the key word here, please.
It has to have a happily ever after. Mm-hmm. Or a happily for now. Otherwise, it's not... to publish it as a romance novel would be a farce. It would be wrong. You know what I mean?
When I'm cataloging them, for example, like, let's say I'm putting a sticker on it. So the first thing I do when I catalog them is I open up the back of the book. And the reason that I open up the back of the book is if it ends with a kiss or, like, something like that, and it doesn't even have to be the two main characters. It could just be, like, let's say the two main characters have a breakup, and then female main character ends up with the secondary lead instead. Like, it's like a whole entire thing. If the characters, if there's an epilogue, like, I go before the epilogue just in case, because I know some people don't like to read those. Just in case.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So if that end right before the epilogue ends in some type of, like, kiss or hug or engagement or
wedding.
They are going somewhere.
Or a double wedding.
Or if they are going somewhere together, like on a vacation or something like that, I consider that to be kind of like a happy ending. And then I go look at the epilogue. And if it's even more of a happy ending, because I will read the epilogue because it's usually like 2 pages.
Yeah.
If it seems happy, I will slap a romance sticker on it. However... if it involves, like, let's say if it's romance and it's historical fiction, but, like, this is also, like, World War II.
Outlander.
Outlander. I know that, like, while the romance is there, it's not exactly plot A.
Yeah, not usually.
If it's not plot A in this, like, it's written as romance and everyone knows it's a romance. If it's not written as the romance is the main plot of the whole entire thing...
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not going to add the sticker to it, and it's why. So
it's one of the reasons that
fantasy romances are difficult for me to catalog.
I always point to Howl's Moving Castle as the quintessential romantasy
beginning
book.
Yes.
That's that. I mean, there were
romantasy
books before that. I mean, Lord of the Rings is a
a
total romantasy, but don't get me started on Frodo and Bilbo.
Like, the big, like, crazy plot. The main plot that starts with is. Sophie's turned into an old lady, let's try to get her out of it.
Yes.
Which
the romance
leads into the romance later, but it's not plot A. It's plot B.
Yes. It's because it is a major plot arc. The romance arc resolves
plot A.
Yes, everything else.
But, like, because there is more than just, like, the romance.
Yeah, because you
There
have
are other
Sophie's
things
problem, and then you have Howl's problem,
Yes.
you have Calcifer's problem. So you
Turnip.
you even have you have the turnip, you have the
Little boy who... Little apprentice boy whose name I remember. Is it Michael?
no, Michael is his name in the movie, and I want to punch Miyazaki every time because it's not his name.
But, like, you have, like, all of those characters, and they all have
And they all have their
plot
problems.
points.
Even Sophie's sisters, siblings, and so on, they have their own problems that
Yeah.
have to be resolved. And so everything's resolved within the same chapter in a very Jane Austen kind of way, which is the point. And, like, that, again, is like, it's the conventional romance arc ending thing. Just because the story has a romance in it, however...
Just because there's a ship in there doesn't mean that it's actually romance.
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, we're using Berserk, but also using Romeo and Juliet. They're called tragedies.
For a reason.
But in order to, gross. In order for a tragedy to work, you have to spin this. You have to tell the story, right? We have to believe in these people.
Mm-hmm.
You have to believe that they're not going to die tragically in the end, so that when they are dying tragically in the end, you're a mess. That's the whole function.
Yes.
But they're not what we would call romances today, just because they're not,
That's why when
they don't
cataloging
end.
fantasies,
They don't end well.
fantasy romances, I don't add romance stickers to those specifically because I know for a fact that there's, like, multiple plot points. If it's well written.
But even a fantasy,
yeah.
even a romantic, anything that they're calling these romanticities now, so that's what I'm calling them.
Great.
I have complex feelings about it, but that's fine. But a romantasy needs to end happily, even
Yeah,
if it's just
otherwise
happily
it's
for
not
now.
a romantasy.
Otherwise, it's not a romantasy. Exactly. It's a fantasy with a romance in it, which that happens all the time. That's, again,
That is
Lord of the Rings.
so many
okay?
fantasies in general. Like,
there are several romances in Lord of the Rings because it's a big story with a lot of things. I know people are not ready for the Frodo Bilbo discourse, but it's not new. Go to the internet, okay? Talk to people smarter than me.
it's
Frodo Bilbo discourse?
Oh, not Frodo Bilbo.
That'd be a whole other thing.
That would be a whole other thing. Frodo Sam. Jeez. Oh, I don't even... Actually, I do like
are
Bilbo.
you missing,
Anyway,
like,
yes,
the main
Frodo and
shit?
Sam. But no, there's other, like, Tom Bombadil and... Is it Glorfindel?
I don't know.
What is Tom's wife?
I can't remember. I just remember they like to dance and stuff.
Yes, no, even Tom and his wife have a really...
Mary something. Mary do.
Yeah, I feel terrible that I don't remember her name, but that's also a Tolkien thing. Anyway, so there's stuff there, right? But I don't care how you cut it, slice it, dice it. Sam and Rosie are not a romance. I'm sorry. They get together. They have the children. They're not a romance because he's not around her the whole book. He doesn't even say bye to her before they leave Hobbiton. He just leaves. It's not a romance. So all of that long, winding ridiculousness is... What was I saying? I was saying something about romance. I don't know. Oh, yeah, romance isn't happily...
Yes.
But even with that, they're not guides to your life.
Right.
It's fiction. Stuff is going to go wrong at certain points. If it doesn't... and
has to in fiction.
Exactly. The number of times
Fiction
people will
has to
say
have
things
conflicts.
like, well, Ross and Rachel are not goals. They're not supposed to be. They're on a sitcom. Stuff is going to go wrong. They're not a good couple. That's the whole point of Ross and Rachel. Now, Monica and Chandler, I think, are a wonderful couple. But your life is not going to go the way that Monica and Chandler's life went. You're not just going to wake up, one day and be like, hey, my best friend looks cute today. So, anyway. I could go on forever about that. It's my big spiel. All right.
Is there any trope that you could throw out the window?
Trope? Like a romance trope?
Have you seen romance tropes? Like, a lot of things lately are, like, written to, like, romance tropes now, which...
Well, of course they are. I mean, if I could throw anything out, that's what I would throw out.
The fact that we're writing to tropes.
No, the fact that every plot is written to a romance trope, because that's not how tropes work. It really, really irritates. And this is... I blame television for this, because... Books weren't... No, really.
Tropes.
Books were not doing
It's a
this.
website.
Books were not doing this even 10 years ago. Even at
Right.
the height of, like, Hunger Games-ish YA and all that kind of stuff, where we're blending things, we're still blending book tropes, because that's what Hunger Games did, is that Suzanne Collins, even though she worked in TV, she was blending book things. These people today writing, and I'm not just talking about YA, I'm talking about all the people. These little Sarah J. Maas's and Rebecca Yaroses and all these people. I have not really read them,
I don't
But
want
I
to.
know the type, okay? I've seen the plot lines. I've heard you people talk about them. I get it. I understand it. I cannot stand that. Like, I'm sorry. If you're going to write a romance, write a romance. If you're going to write a romantic fantasy, sure, do that. The minute you start putting in, like, random, like, spies... I'm sorry. If you're going to do that, go watch anime for 5 years and then do it. Because then I will trust that you're capable of handling it. Because that's the one place in the world where they're handling it like
insanely
bosses.
well.
Where they're able to balance all that
Yes,
stuff?
because
Yes.
because that's how anime works. It has worked that way for
They're, like,
7 centuries.
It works on stereotypes and tropes. Like, that is how anime functions.
Yes, but their stereotypes and tropes are so different than ours that it looks like they're blending our tropes, and it's like, no, they're not blending our tropes at all. They don't even care about our tropes. They're going to steal our knights and our castles and our people.
Right,
Sure.
but they're going to do their own thing.
But they're going to do their own thing with it. So, yeah.
Because there's, like, so many just, like, random, like, romance tropes, and I'm just, like, staring at them just going...
So if I could do it with a trope, I would do away with the let's write everything to a romance plotline trope, even though there's no romance in the book. It's a fantasy or a sci-fi or whatever. It's like, no, your dystopia doesn't need to be written to romance spec, because it's not even going to end happily. People...
Granted, my answer was so much more simpler because I just don't like pregnancy tropes in books.
Yeah, Revenge of the Sith should have all thought
As a
that
way
was
for a
stupid.
plot line to get the two characters together, I just don't like that as a plot.
Oh, you know what you should watch? You should watch Catastrophe, because that is literally...
Is it gonna make me mad?
It's gonna infuriate you for 4 seasons, but it's 20 minutes episodes, so you keep watching. It is so funny. So the basic premise is this American business guy goes over to the UK for a business trip, hooks up with this Irish girl. They're like, good times, awesome. He leaves to go back home because business trip is over. She's a school teacher.
Baby.
She's pregnant. And she's like, I don't even know how to let this man know. And they I can't remember if she has his number by accident or something, or they end up running into each other like a month later or something, and she says to him, like, oh, by the way, we're expecting a child. And he's like, wait, hold up, what? And they literally, he proposes to her by episode 2, and they've only known each other for 3 months. And she's like, slow your roll. I will allow you to help me pay for this baby, though, if you really feel you've got to do something. It is utterly insane.
I feel like for TV it works.
It works. It was Carrie Fisher's last television role.
But
Because
for
she plays
books,
his mom.
But for books, it's funky because books will turn around and they'll do it, but they do it specifically as a trope to let people in, to get the two characters together, in the next page, and I'm just like,
yeah, I think books haven't really handled that.
They don't handle it well at all.
Not to say that the show necessarily did. I just thought it was funny.
You just thought it was funny.
Yeah, it's a screen.
Why?
Well, we did it, guys. We solved the mystery of love. The case is closed.
I think what we did, if Jen ever listens to this, is